Hey, I realized something today that I am for corporate misfits. That I never knew this label existed. Maybe it does, but I just realized that my corporate experience in a toxic environment and actually a couple of toxic environments, or putting myself down, not believing in myself, making me out to be the victim, being helpless. I am a corporate misfit. Maybe you can relate to that. And now I understand what that feels like. And I want to share my story with you because you also might understand what that feels like. And now I'm on the other side. So maybe that's where you want to be too. So I stand for corporate misfits. I want to help corporate misfits because I was a corporate misfit. I needed a friend. I'm going to tell you about one specific environment that I was pulled out of, and then how that spiraled to where I am now. I needed a friend to pull me out of this environment and shake me, like give me a shake. You ever, have you ever needed that from a friend before? Thankfully, she was there. And she pulled me out and she helped me to see that what was going on was not okay. Helped me to see that what I was being surrounded by was actually, in fact, toxic and manipulative, and that I should decide what I want to do about it. And so I got really angry about it. I felt lots of fire about it. I got really spiteful about it. And I felt like the only solution I really knew how to do was to fight back. I mean, yeah, so that's what I did. And it didn't feel great. And it didn't solve anything. And despite wanting to fight back, and sometimes the fight back was direct and sometimes the fight back was indirect, right? Like sometimes the fight back was like, oh, I'll show him, like he can't do this to me. Sometimes the fight back was, oh, let me show him by bringing in on this amazing high value project. Let me show him by, one of my favorites, making this room full of financial men or men in the financial industry laugh. Like, let me go into this room and conduct this meeting with levity and confidence. Let me help renew these client retainers. Let me build a new website for us. Like, let me take on the lion's share of work and let me prove to you that I can do hard things and that I can bring value to this company. But it was never enough. It was never enough. I was micromanaged to death. I was micromanaged to all the creativity. And if I don't have creativity, I don't have a lot. So all the creativity was like wrung out of me. And so I realized that despite all this fire I have, despite all this Leo energy I have, I was like, I need to leave before I get fired. Either I leave or I get fired, right? The scenario. So I left. And I realized that I needed some time. So I found a burnout course that I took. And it was self-paced and it was just what I needed at that time. And I worked myself through that. And I realized, I put on some weight. And so I lost the 20 pounds that I had put on from the stress of being in corporate, unhealthy, unstable environments. And I swore to myself, I am not going to be treated like this again. Like I know what it feels like and it sucks. So I don't want that again. And wouldn't you know, like I am in a house of all males. I have a husband, I have 2 boys, I have 2 male dogs. Like I have surrounded myself with this male energy that was really the enemy before. I mean, it didn't have to be, but I made it bigger than it was. And I really started to acutely notice how I was being treated. And I started to notice how I wanted to be treated. And so that was a big deal for me. And then with these realizations and this recovery period, I started to slowly feel safe again, but not really. And then I decided to step into some major teachings. Like shit got kind of real. I decided to call in, like to bring in mentors that could really rock my world and help me get to this other side of how am I really not going to do this again? How am I really not going to allow myself to be in this situation again? And through like not too far in and reinforced by some of the other things that I had done before I started these, bigger teachings, I realized that one of the biggest parts of the solution is for me to take responsibility for my own actions. And so part of what I had to do in that healing process from that toxic relationship is to acknowledge that I allowed it to happen, and to see, like, be open to seeing how I did that and what I was actually responsible for. And I learned a few things about myself. I learned that I play the game, that I like that dance of saying that I'll do one thing and then doing something else because I think it will be better or yield better results. But it's not what I said I would do. It's not what I committed to or what I was responsible for. And so, as hard as it is to hear, because we don't want to hear that shit, but as hard as it is to hear, there are things around you that you might not like that you are actually allowing happen and that you are somewhat responsible for. I mean, sometimes we can't change our environment, and sometimes we can't accept our environment. And so the only option is to leave the environment. But that's not the only option all the time. And so I stepped into these teachings, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you like all the mentors and the coaching and the books and the experiences and all these things that I did to get where I am today, because that's not what's important. What's important, what I really, really want you to hear, is that you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait to know that you're in a similar situation that needs to change. What is important for me is that I received teachings. I was able to hear certain things along the way that I then took in and found my truth in those teachings. And then once I found my truth in those teachings, I was able to embrace that truth. I was able to step into that truth and then be that person that I wanted to be. Be that person that reflected those truths that were true to me. And so that's how it happens. We can't just step into being someone new. We can't just leave a toxic environment and then go somewhere else and expect it not to happen. We have to do something differently. We can't just keep fighting. We can't just keep this fire inside of us and think that's going to be enough to burn away the situation. It's not enough. It helps, but it needs to be redirected. And so that's how things happen. You hear something, you're taught something, and then you find your truth in that teaching, and then you embrace that truth. You figure out how to step into that truth so that it is who you are. That's how change happens. That's what I want you to hear. If you don't hear anything else from this story, that's where change lives, after that process, through that process. And that's what I'm here to do. And that's what I'm here to do. I realize that you might be like me and be in some of these situations where you feel like all you can do is fight. And that might be all you can do right now, but it's not the only answer. And if you don't have to wait until you have a C next to your title. You don't have to wait until you make more money. You don't have to wait until you're promoted. You don't have to wait until you want whatever you want, whether it's flexibility or a new home or more vacation time, or just to be understood that you're a parent who has a lot of needs at the moment outside of work, and just to be appreciated as a whole being. Whatever it is. You don't have to wait until things change and you get that thing. You can hear what you hear now. You can find your truth in it, and you can step into being that truth. And that was the greatest gift for me. That is what gave me freedom. Ultimately, hey, you might want more money, and that's okay. Or you might want a promotion, and that's okay. Or you might want that more flexibility to work where you want, when you want. And that's okay. But what I say to that is, what else do you want? You could have those things, and you can have those things and be an employee who actually knows how to take responsibility for your actions as an employee and as a human. And you can stand in your truth and have freedom to work for a company that actually sees you as whole because you see you as whole. And that's why I found it ritual everyday ritual. That's why I want to work with corporate misfits. People who feel like they are suffering under somebody else's rule, somebody else's corporate rule, whether it's your boss or teammates or even your team. You know, sometimes we're such people pleasers that our team is the people who are controlling us. So I want you to know that that is not the way forward. That's not where corporate is heading. That's not what the culture is going to be in 5, 10, 15 years. So you can either stay where you are now and have these consequences that are literally killing you. They're so stressful and there's so much to carry. Or you can decide to find something new, another teaching, and then you can find your truth in that teaching, and then you can learn to embrace that so that you can have the freedom you want to define success on your terms, in your way. I mean, you can keep the Corporate Misfit title, that's fine. I'm going to keep it because I definitely think that's a part of who we are, but we can be misfits who actually own, are self-responsible for what we sign up to do, and to see that through in ways that are healthy and sustainable and make us thrive. Yeah, so there's a written part of my story too. If you want to read it again or check it out, or if anything relates to you, I'd love to hear in the comments. Just, drop burnout or freedom or truth bomb or whatever it is that got to you in the comments, and know that I see you. If you're a corporate misfit, I know what it feels like. And I'm on the other side, and I'd love to bring you here with me.